retired, U.S. Army.
Well, Kelly, thank you for that almost truthful introduction. I got the call to come back to McNick and speak. I couldn't believe it. I thought sure they had found those other detentions and had plans to put me back in detention with Coach Kurt Gassner or Becker, if you know him, way back when. Before I do get started, I do want to recognize your special operations soldier that was killed last night doing your bidding in Yemen. There was a terrorist camp there they hit last night, and one of our special operators was killed. So this morning at 6:30, somewhere in America, a family was notified that their son or their dad was not going to come home, ever. And those are the kinds of sacrifices that your special operations forces are putting forth every day. And so as you go about your day, I just ask you to keep that special operator in mind. Could be an Army guy, could be a sailor, could be an Air Force, but whoever it is, immaterial or branch, they paid the ultimate price last night on your behalf. So think about them as we go on today. Okay, I've got Sean is my slide turner today. Okay, so as everyone knows, a good speech, right, should be like what? Right, a comet. It should be like a comet, right? It should be dazzling, it should be eye-opening, and it should be over before you know it. So I'm going to try to be that guy today. Okay? So this is our presentation. Quitting is never an option. That has got more than just military application. It means if you're on the football team, or you're in the Boy Scouts, or you're a lawyer or a doctor, or you're in medical school, or you're going to be a fireman or a plumber, quitting is never an option. And quitting is not something that they ever teach here at McNichols, right? You're trying to attain full stature in Christ. This is something that I continue to try to attain. I don't know why they chose that. It's a hard one. We're never going to get there. You might. Certainly I will not get there. But quitting is not the way to attain full stature in Christ. Okay? We're going to talk about some combat operations in Iraq. Okay? That's a terrible picture of me. But I do want to talk for just a minute about, can everybody hear me in the back? Am I good? Okay.
The microphone. Maybe the mic.
Yeah, I've got one. Do I need it?
Yeah. Yes.
Darn it.
I'll let the sisters answer it.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah.
Sorry. The first part with the introduction was great. You missed it. So for those folks that don't know all the Army ranks, I want to go over this real quickly. In the Army, you guys have heard of privates and corporals and sergeants. You've also heard of lieutenants and captains and generals. There is a very small cohort in the Army called warrant officers. And a warrant officer has a very highly technical position. So he is an officer, he gets saluted, he gets paid a little more than the sergeant, but certainly he's not at that level as a captain or a general. Okay? So I was a Chief Warrant Officer 5. So in the Army, Warrant Officer 1 is the guy at the bottom, and then you get promoted to 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 is the top of the heap. So I was able to fool them several times to get promoted to CW5. And I was in special operations, so I was a pilot, flew helicopters in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I flew Apaches. And I left the regular Army and went to special operations. And it's a deal where you have to apply, you have to assess, it's a week-long assessment, and then if they need you, you did well, they might take you. And I was lucky enough to be selected to fly little birds. And you can see how small that aircraft is. In this room, right now, I would tell you 1/2 of America's fleet of little birds would fit in here with the blades folded. 1/2 of the fleet would fit inside this room. They're very small. You see I don't have a door on. We never fly with doors. And the reason is because when you're flying with your night vision goggles, they're a big deal that goes on top of your helmet, you're looking around. If you have a door right here, your goggles hit the door and you can't look out the window, which if anybody's a pilot looking out the window, that's one of the important things to be able to do. So you're not able to do that. The other thing with no doors there, it allows the pilot and or co-pilot to shoot their gun or drop grenades out the window. Okay, slide. So here's a little bit of a picture of the little bird, and it's Hughes 500. And you can see the top right, the aircraft is firing rockets there, and that's at the range at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, just south of here by about 4 or 5 hours. So the idea with the little bird is you get close, you cannot carry a lot of ammunition. You can only carry so many rockets, physics. You can only carry so much weight, so much gas, so many bullets. So instead of wasting them by spraying an area and hoping you hit something, the deal with a little bird in special operations, you get very close as you can, whites to their eyes kind of thing, before you shoot. Okay, slide. So in 2006, I was in Iraq, and I have done, between Iraq and Afghanistan, before I retired, I did 23 tours over there. So very familiar with the country and the folks. So your special operations forces in America, they do not capture and hold ground like you might think an army does. An army rolls along, they capture ground and they hold it, right? Special operations does not do that. What we do is we hunted men. And so if you were someone that had made a mistake and got on our list, we would come and find you. And America has lots of technical ways to find individual people and to track them and to find out what they're doing today and where they're at. We would do that. And so on this particular mission, it was a day mission. Okay, so I was in a unit and our motto was the Night Stalkers. So we did everything at night. There's reasons to do things at night, right? Bad guys can't see you, that's the big reason. We have a lot of technologies that allow us to see the bad guy at night. So he can't see us, I can see him, I win every time. Well, when you're flying during the day, now it's a little more of a gamble, it's a bit of a crapshoot, right? So we're going after a known terrorist in the western desert of Iraq, northwest of Baghdad by about 50 miles. And we've been chasing this guy, been watching him. Okay, so now we know he's at this house, but we don't want to get you in a house. We're going to try to go get that terrorist when he gets in his car to go to the next house, right? Because when you're in the car, you are very vulnerable to helicopter attack, right? Makes sense? But if you're in your house, you can hide, you got somewhere to shoot behind, you can shoot back at us, it's not a good thing. So we're waiting, right? And so he was up there in the left-hand corner, original target location you see, and so we went to ground. We landed our helicopters because we don't want to burn up all our gas, wait for this guy to get into his car. And so we went to ground and you wait for about 15 minutes, which oddly enough is the same amount of time it takes a good mortar crew to set up a mortar and get some rounds on you, okay? And so we would get back in the helicopters, take back off, and go to the next position. So we're just out in the desert, just kind of doing this hopping thing, waiting for this guy to get into his car. When I heard something on the radio that I had never heard before. Now, for an Army aviator, we rarely speak on the radio because you don't want to give yourself away by radio waves, right? Because the bad guys have a way to direction find where those radio waves are coming from and listen in, and they can figure out who you are and what you're up to. So we never talk on the radio. So in special ops, I'm not kidding you, never, ever talk on the radio. Well, I heard something on the radio that surprised even me. So I hear this: Mayday, Mayday, Mayday.
this is not a good thing, this Mayday thing. I'd never heard that before. I saw it in a B-17 movie one time, but I'd never heard anybody say it on the radio. And I looked over, and my crewmate, Chalk 2 there, did not have a tail rotor on his helicopter. So you're not helicopter pilots, maybe, I don't know, this whole tail rotor thing's important. It does look cool, I'll give you that. I mean, okay, so it's got a cool factor to it, but when that tail rotor comes off, the blades are spinning one way and the body tends to spin the other way, physics and all. And so what you do is, this is a practice maneuver, you land your helicopter, it's got skids, there's no wheels, right? So you land your helicopter going about 80 miles an hour down a 10,000 foot runway at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and trying to keep it on the runway and practice not landing without having a tail rotor. Okay, this is what it looks like if you do this maneuver without a tail rotor in the desert. Okay, so this is Chalk 2's aircraft. This is his helicopter. This is what it looked like after he landed. So on the back, you see there's no tail rotor back there, right? It's gone. Inside, where the two pilots would be sitting, their crew space, the Army has a word, it was compromised. Yes, the crew space was compromised by flying rotor blades going through there. You can see the windscreen's broken. Now these two pilots lived, and I just want to show you a few things about the helicopter here. This is a rocket pod. It's got high explosive rockets in it. This is a rubber bag that we carry for extra gas. So if you stop somewhere and they don't have the right kind of nozzle, we can fill up the bag with gas and then put it in our helicopter. This can right here is the auxiliary fuel tank, and that's where we have a lot of extra fuel. Okay, so you can see that helicopter's broken. America's got to buy us a new one right there. We've used that one. Okay, so they landed. Now we didn't know what had brought that helicopter down. And I should say that going after the bad guy, going after the known terrorist, we had two helicopters like this. I'm in one, this guy's in the other, and we're the fire support for the mission. We had two Blackhawks, and that's that big troop transport kind of aircraft, and we had 24 commandos with us that day. And then we had two other little birds like this one, except they don't have guns and rockets on them. On those little birds, they have what is akin to picnic table benches on the outside. And they can land right on a car, they can land right on a roof, they're very precise on where they can land. And so the special operators can get off exactly at the door they want to get off, the stairwell, land on a bridge, wherever they need to. So we had 6 helicopters with us, and now we're down 1. So we didn't know didn't think he'd been shot down. It looked to me like it was a maintenance issue and his tail rotor just came off. So we all landed. The commandos got out and formed a big perimeter like they always do, facing out, looking to shoot someone. The Blackhawks landed. This crew that was in here, they got out and got into the Blackhawks so they could go to the hospital. They had bumps, bruises, cuts, scrapes. They were banged up, looked like a big car accident or a helicopter crash is what they look like, right? And then we had the other 2 little birds and those 4 pilots who were on the ground. Slide. Slide. This worked so well in rehearsal. It was unbelievably smooth. There he is. Okay, good. Okay, so this is a movie. It looks dark right now, but a movie's going to come up. And so as we were on the ground and we began picking up pieces from the crashed helicopter so we could figure out what happened, one of the commandos walked over to me and said, "Dave, you know what? There's some gun trucks that have just pulled up, and don't know who they are." So at this time in Iraq, there's really no uniformed soldiers. Everybody looks like a civilian, and some of the civilians were actually Iraqi National Guardsmen. So we didn't want to just start shooting at them right off. We want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And as they're pulling up, And he tells me, hey, can you go check that out? And that's a reasonable request. So we walk over, I'm telling you, I'm walking, right? I'm sauntering. I'm not running, this is not anything screaming and yelling yet. And right as I get to my helicopter to get in, the bullets start flying. And these gun trucks were close. So for this side of the room, I want you to look out and look at that Burger King sign. Can you see Burger King there? That's how close the bad guys were. With bullets, they can go twice that far easily. Okay? So they're only about 800 meters away. You can see the individual guy shooting at you. Yeah, I'm not kidding you, this went so well. And as we get ready for the movie to begin, I do want to recognize a few people. We'll take a short break. I want to recognize the first responders that are here and thank you for your service. Everhart, Moore, Mullis, Hauser, and Chief Crispin. Thank you. Next, I want to thank the clergy that's here, Father Tom. The administration that's here, Sean and Dave Jackson that was up earlier. Thanks for being here. And I'd also like to thank the folks that have served and gone before me and served. And thank you for your service. I want to thank Andrew Gallagher, Ron Veneman, Steve Beiser, thank you. Joe McDermott, Billy Bain, Steve Miller, Greg Ballou, Troy Burt, Kurt Miller, and John Crawford. Thank you. Okay, great. So, and I'm an Army aviator. I don't actually need glasses. Okay, just to make sure. They only enhance my rugged good look. So, so this is actually these trucks pulling up. So we had a technical piece of equipment up in the sky that was manned, and they actually watched these guys pull up. It would have been nice for them to call us, just to say, hey, something's going on. I don't know, something. We don't know what it is, but they did. So can you start the movie? Perfect. Okay. So it's hard to see, but if you look at the left side of these vehicles, you see the guns. You see the guns sticking out. The vehicles are full of terrorists, and so these 6 gun trucks pull up about 800 meters away, and they start blasting us. So in the news lately, you heard about Winston Churchill and the White House and all that. We got a special relationship. I know you heard all that. Winston Churchill's got a great quote. It goes something like this. Winston Churchill said, the most exciting thing in life, most exciting thing in life, is to be shot at without result. I would agree. It's very exciting, and I do not recommend it. Not at all. When bullets pass you, and especially these big bullets, that when they're fired look about the size of basketballs coming at you, they pass you and you hear a sonic boom, the crack of that bullet passing you. There were so many bullets being shot at me and my co-pilot. And if I ever just say me today, I mean me and my co-pilot. He's the bravest guy I know, because he didn't get the chance to touch the controls that day. He just had to sit there. So anyway, as these bullets are passing by, they make such a noise. It sounded like we were inside a bag of popcorn in the microwave. It's exactly what it sounded like. Those pops going past us. We were hit, the aircraft was hit a couple times. And so as a gun pilot, your job is to get fire on the enemy, to take that fire so they're not shooting at your ground forces. So if the bad guys are shooting at me, I'm doing my job. I don't have to hit them, I don't have to kill them, which obviously I'm doing and trying to do, but in the end, my job is to keep those bullets from going at the ground force. And we felt that we were doing a pretty good job. I mean, everybody and their brother was shooting right at us. And so, can we get another slide? Or is it gonna, shoot, good. Okay, so this is a piece of imagery on the lower left. You can see where the crash site is. And then to the right, you can see where the multiple pickups are with the machine guns. And in the middle there is a house that's just filled with foreign fighters that have been shooting at us every time we pass. And I asked the co-pilot, I said, man, this is a screwed up day. We don't usually have days like this. He goes, I know, they're shooting at us. Yeah, they've been shooting at us, Chief. Where the hell you been? Yeah, they're shooting at us. Every one of them shooting at us. He goes, no, not the pickup trucks, them. And I had been flying right over this house filled with 40 foreign fighters, right below me on every one of my gun runs. Had never seen them because my vision had just gotten to about the size of a soda straw. There was just so much adrenaline. All I could see was just out about that much. I was not able to even look straight down. He showed me, and Father, I won't say what I said, but I didn't learn those words at McNick, I guarantee. So we were able to, we had F-16s with us, and they were able to drop a bomb on that house and dispatch those guys. Now there was one guy out in the middle. He had decided, he thought that him and his machine gun that was not mobile, he was by himself with a machine gun laying on the ground. He thought he could outmaneuver a helicopter. Just like they say in Indiana Jones, he chose poorly. Don't do this. I don't recommend that. Not against helicopters. All right, slide. Should be okay. So now, can you stop that slide without, or should I? Good man. You're the man. Okay, so this is a picture of us on the ground. So you see by that end that points north, there are 2 helicopters on the ground. Those are the good helicopters with the picnic table benches on them. There was so much fire coming in, those pilots could not get to their helicopter. They could not go there. The other helicopter, the one furthest to the bottom of the page, is the crashed one. And these are pictures taken from the overhead asset that we had that day. So this is going on and on. So in Army aviation, you can do a lot of things. We do a lot of great things. But one thing we do not do is leave the ground force. We will never leave the ground force. This is beat into you on day 1 of flight school. That yeah, you're a pilot, and that doesn't really mean anything because the guys, all this flight stuff is for is the ground force, the infantry soldier, the artilleryman that's on the ground. That's who we fly for. If we didn't fly for them, we'd just be a bunch of guys running around with big watches and getting flight pay. But we all are dedicated to the ground force. And we got that from Vietnam, and the helicopter guys in Vietnam who would never leave the ground force. So here it is. This is our day. We're not going to leave the ground force. But I'm using up ammunition at a fairly rapid rate. So if I left right now and I went back to the base, 20 minutes. Getting ammo, 20 minutes. Flying back, 20 minutes. So now I would have had to leave the ground force for an hour. Not happening. Not today. The ground force was all by themselves. They're on the ground. They can't go anywhere. They're stuck. They're firing at these trucks with their little pea shooter guns that barely get a bullet that far. So they're not doing any damage at all. All those trucks have to do is pull up a little closer, and they're going to kill every one of the guys on the ground force, and it's apparent to all of us. So what my co-pilot and I did was land at the crashed helicopter and get the ammunition out of the crashed helicopter and get it into ours. So we came around, we landed, let the helicopter go to idle, got our seatbelts off, jumped out, ran around, pulled rockets out of the crashed helicopter, got some machine gun ammunition out of the crashed helicopter, put it in ours, got back in, and got right back up. So we did this twice. The third go, get another slide, please, I'll show you. No, go ahead. Okay, so this is actually a great picture. This is actually the very first photo bomb. Can you see the guy in the background, African-American fella? Behind you, yeah. He's actually the funniest human on the planet. He is a funny guy. So anyway, the 4 guys that I was saying were flying those other helicopters, They couldn't get to their helicopter, they were stuck on the ground because there was so much fire. That's these guys right here, okay? So they're all 4 warrant officers. They don't look like a recruiting picture, that's for sure. That's not these guys. A couple of them are maintenance officers, there's a safety officer, and there's an instructor pilot there. So they're on the ground and they can't move. Well, once I landed the second time at the helicopter to pull out ammunition and rockets, it dawned on them how they could help. So they jumped up and went to the crashed aircraft and started pulling out ammunition and pulling out more ammunition. And of course, the minigun, the machine gun ammunition had all broken apart, so they reassembled the belts of ammunition that I would need. And then they also, with a Leatherman, and I'm not a Leatherman salesman, but you know what I'm talking about, a Leatherman, right? A little tool on your belt that, you know, Swiss Army knife kind of thing. They got out that auxiliary fuel tank with a Leatherman. Now that's usually a 4-hour go for a crew chief and a full toolbox. These guys got that out in about a half hour. But it's amazing how you can get motivated and get things done. Slide. Okay, so here was the setup again. About this time, the guys at the house that were not killed by the Air Force activities there, they got about 10 or 12 guys in a one of those small white Isuzu pickup trucks that seem to be so prevalent there, and started off on the pickup truck and tried to outrun a armed helicopter with their pickup truck. Again, they had chosen poorly. Slide. So, take a little break here. And I want you to close your eyes and think. At night, we all probably do, as men, at night we all do the same things. First, we read a chapter or 2 in the good book, right? After that, kiss the wife, it's time to go to sleep. And then what's the last thing you do before you go to sleep? What's the very last thing? Anybody? Yeah, that's right. You pull out your helicopter gunnery manual and you go over it and you read a couple chapters like we all do. Everybody does it, I know, don't be afraid. So, in your helicopter gunnery manual, you know one of the things it says, right? It says, never use rockets that have been dropped from more than 3 feet high, because the warhead's unstable, the fuel in the rocket is unstable, but it doesn't say anything about rockets that have been in a catastrophic helicopter crash. Mm-hmm. So those are the rockets we were using. They're right in there. So pulling these rockets out, great risk that they don't go off just because we're pulling them out, and then putting them into our own rocket tubes and getting back into the fight. I will tell you something as exciting as this. Having the bad guys in your windscreen, you're looking at them, they're looking at you, they're shooting at you, and you mash the rocket button and nothing happens. And you think, man, I'm gonna have to get that helicopter gunnery book amended. I'm gonna have to fix that, because these rockets, some of them didn't work at all. But those were where the rockets were. We get a slide? Okay, and these are the ammo cans for machine gun ammo, and the guns are Gatling guns, and each gun shoots 3,000 rounds in a minute. So they shoot a lot of ammo, but we don't hold the trigger down for a minute. You just, a 1 or 2 second burst is plenty of ammo going down range. Slide. And there's the ox tank, we talked about that, and the Z-bag. So on my third stop, I was able to get the rest of the ammo and the fuel to keep me there. The rest of the ammo and fuel. Because those other 4 guys were so motivated. It's amazing how being shot at motivates you to get up, stand up, and get that done for me. Slide. Okay, slide. So now I want to talk about Troy Lee Gilbert. And I want to talk to you about Major Gilbert so that you understand, at least partially, the enemy that America faces in Iraq and Afghanistan. So Troy Lee Gilbert's an F-16 pilot. And F-16s never go anywhere by themselves. They always go in twos, they always go in pairs. So Troy and his wingmen were having trouble seeing us and seeing the bad guys this day. Because usually you're talking to an F-16 guy, you give them landmarks so they can find the target. So you say, do you see the church by the big intersection? Yes, I see the church, okay. Go north 1 mile on that road by a lone tree, that's where the target is. You say, oh yeah, I see that. And you can get a bomb on it. Well, on this day, on a flat desert, we had nothing to tell him. No way to tell him where these targets were, and they just couldn't see them. So the F-16 began what they call yo-yo operations. So one F-16 stayed overhead, and the other F-16 went to a tanker to get more fuel, and then came back and replaced. So you see the yo-yo thing, right? So, and it was probably a 20-minute go for them to go back and forth and get gas and a whole bit. So now, about this time, so we're about 2 hours and 20 minutes into the fight. The bad guys are starting to get the idea, hey, this is not working for us. It's not working how we'd hoped it would. So they're getting leave. So they kind of get in their trucks and start down the road to get out of there. About that time, that's when the F-16 guys when they saw movement. So now Troy and his F-16 comes around again, and he's got bombs, but launching bombs onto moving vehicles is a difficult proposition. 99% of the time, you will not get effects on the target. So he's going to try to get gun. So F-16 has a 20mm gun. He's trying to get his gun on the target. So he's diving at the target, right? And so he's diving at about 150 miles an hour at the earth, and he's shooting, and he's trying to get his rounds over to the target. While he's doing this, he's getting closer and closer to the earth. We would call it target fixation. He had pancaked into the earth and was instantly killed. Instantly killed. So Troy has a wife, 2 boys, and 3 daughters at home. So it's a family man. And he's a churchgoer as well. So the fight is now over. The bad guys have retreated. And we go to the crash site to try to recover Troy's body. And the bad guys had gotten there first, and they took his body. And we found a couple, there was very little human remains. We found some, but not much. So Special Operations Command, of course, treated them with dignity and respect they deserve, brought those back to America, presented them to his wife. So now his wife has just got literally a handful of remains. And she's trying to think, what should I do with this? So she has a full-on funeral at Arlington. Full-on funeral in Section 60. So, okay, so this was in 2006, right? So in 2010, some Iraqi chieftain got a hold of the Special Operations Command and said, hey, we got your guy. We got your guy. And we're going to send you a package with some of your guy in it, just so you can know that we're being serious. So, this man's been dead for 4 or 5 years now. They cut off his fingers off the dead body, put them in a box, and sent them to Washington, D.C., where they looked at the DNA and decided, hey, that is the guy. That's our guy. So we went back, the Special Operations Command goes back, starts talking with the chieftain, and all of a sudden it all goes quiet. Now all of a sudden nobody knows the guy, nobody's ever seen him before. We don't know what you're talking about, and we can't get anything. So this last October, they called again and say, hey, you know what, we do have your guy. So what they're trying to do, if you're not getting it by now, what they're trying to do is get money, because they know America loves their pilots. I mean, you can jack with America in a lot of ways, but if you jack around with our pilots, that does not work for people in America. And so they were trying to get money, and they were just trying to up the ante, up the ante, up the ante. So the last time they called us in October, we were all done, and we got his entire body back. And so in January 3rd, I think, we had his final burial. So for Troy Lee Gilbert's family, They had 3 full burials at Arlington. 3 full grieving funerals at Arlington to get that man buried. That's the kind of enemy that's out there. That's the kind of folks that we are fighting. Those are the kinds of people that want to come to America, kill us, and destroy our way of life. Just think about that kind of a person. That's not who we want to be friends with, right? Okay, but so in conclusion, Army Aviation is a team of teams. Yep, I was the guy out there that day, but guess what? I just happened to be the guy that day, but any one of the Army aviators out there flying for special operations would have done the exact same thing that I did, but probably had done it better than I did. I was just the guy that day. But I'm the guy at the tip of the spear, right? So all the folks behind me, the medics, the people in the chow hall, the clerks, the mechanics, the armament guys, the fuel handlers, all those guys is what it takes to put that Army Aviation helicopter onto the battlefield. So your relative position to the combat really has no bearing on your importance to the mission, right? So if you're the cat on the football team that's running water or running towels, you're just as important as the quarterback. Because without you, nothing else can happen, right? So you don't always have to be the guy at the top of the heap, the guy that's getting all the glory and medals and all that to be important to the team. Each one of us has a bit of a team on whatever team we're on. And that's the important part, that you give 100%. And I will tell you that it seems to me that while I know that I will never personally attain full stature of Christ, I can get myself a little closer by service. And I come from a long line of service. My father, all my uncles, my grandfathers, I had one grandfather served both in World War I and II. That's kind of our legacy, is military service. But there's a lot of kinds of service, and you just have to find out the service that's right for you, so that you too can attain full stature in Christ. I will be happy to take a question or two before I get off this stage. Anybody? Perfect. Perfect. So, like that comet, dazzling, eye-opening, and done.